Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Ontario Cryptids. Halloween has just passed and I hope you all had an awesome night filled with fun, fright, and maybe even a few mysterious moments of your own. Now that the pumpkins have started to fade, I have 4 chilling encounter stories to keep that spooky spirit alive just a little bit longer. So before we dive in, don't forget to hit that like button, that subscribe button, and hit that notification bell so you'll never miss another episode. Also, take a second to hype this video. It's a free way to help Ontario Cryptids climb the leaderboard and reach more fellow mystery lovers. If you'd like to support the channel even more, consider becoming a channel member. Members get awesome perks like exclusive chats, shoutouts, and early community updates. And of course, if you have an encounter of your own, we'd love to hear it. Just send your stories to ontariocryptids@gmail.com. Now sit back and relax and let's get into these eerie tales of the unknown. Two friends and I went camping in Davy Crockett National Forest on April the 19th, 2023. We camped up in Natchez camping area. It's about 7 miles southwest of Alto. Arriving around 8:30 a.m., we set up camp. We had the area totally to ourselves, being it was Thursday and it had been raining a few days before. We set up camp at about 3 p.m. One of my friends and I wanted to hike down to the Big Sloth, a creek that feeds into Natchez River. We wanted to try out a new water filter. The trail was the logging road, and it was about 2.5 miles to the T in the trail. We hit the T and we traversed to the right along the power line trail for about 2 miles up past a beaver pond. We collected water and saw a few snakes, so we started to head back. We reached a T and turned to the left and headed back uphill. It was quiet, just a perfect spring day. About 1/4 of a mile up the trail, we clearly heard a single clear whoop. It was to the left and rear of us, maybe 100 yards. My friend, who was with me, was on the trail ahead of me, about 3 feet ahead, and when we heard a whoop, he turned around slowly and looked at me. I motioned to him not to make a sound, for us to remain still and quiet. We quietly waited for about 2 minutes and then there was a second whoop. This one was about 200 yards away, ahead of us. The 2 whoops were different, but had a clean sound to them, not like a person, real smooth. I knew we were back there by ourselves. There were no footprints or vehicle tracks leading into the area due to the rain. We remained in the area for another 5 minutes and heard nothing, and we returned to camp. The rest of the trip, we did not hear or see anything else. I was approximately 9 or 11 years old, and I'm certain our encounter was with a Sasquatch as we were leaving our home. It was in the evening. It wasn't pitch dark, but it was dark enough for the headlights to be on. My mom and dad were having a heated argument about something in the truck as we were leaving. My dad was driving and I was seated between them, and my mom was on the passenger side looking out of the window. I don't recall where we were going, I think to a relative's house. When my dad made the right out of the driveway, the headlights fell on a figure, and at first, I thought it was just a person walking down the side of the road. But then I realized it wasn't wearing clothes, no shoes, just a dark brown scruffy-like coat of hair from head to foot. It didn't run when the headlights landed on it. It simply hurried its steps to get to the side of the road where it went up a slight embankment leading into the brushy, wooded area. I remember thinking, why is his arms so long? It had rather long arms, and the palm of the right hand was kind of cupped and faced towards its backside as it hurried. It was not massive, around 6 to 6.5 feet tall, not thin, but thick or stocky. It never turned around, just hurried its steps to get out of view. I sat there quietly between my parents as my dad drove. I never asked about the figure because my parents were angry with each other and I didn't want to add fuel to the fire. My dad never mentioned if he saw the figure, and I think it was because he and my mom were still angry with each other. As the driver, I'm sure he saw it, but may have assumed it was a person. I don't believe my mom saw the figure at all because she was kind of facing the passenger window. She was still angry with my dad and stayed silent. I have never spoken of this incident. I was a kid and didn't know what a Sasquatch was then. We had no cable TV, cell phones, etc., so I had no idea at the time of what I had seen. I didn't know what to think at the time, but I'm 100% certain of what I saw crossing the road that evening. We lived in Pike County, Ohio at the time, in a small house. I remember the incident as if it were yesterday, and that image has been in my head since that evening. I've never spoken of it because I know how unbelievable the story sounds, and in today's society, I understand that. However, I would take a polygraph. That is how certain I am of what I saw. I'm not seeking anything from anyone. I know you must receive thousands of similar emails. I simply hope this information will help in determining sightings in that area during that time frame, and I'm happy to answer any questions about my incident if you have any. My son and I were deer hunting. The first morning I was sitting in a tree stand about 20 feet high. The lake was about 25 feet behind me. My son was hunting approximately 300 yards from me at the time. I would say my son was 400 to 500 yards from whatever was making this noise. These screams started at around 7 and lasted about 5 minutes. These screams were long and loud and deep. About 10 minutes after the scream stopped, an 8-foot pine limb about 5 inches in diameter was thrown in my direction. About 50 yards from me in the direction that the screams were coming from, I saw this limb flying through the air. It was thrown. I could see in every direction at least 50 to 100 yards. I never saw or heard anything else. Even before the screaming started, I noticed the woods were very quiet. No squirrels or nothing moving. I told my son about it afterwards and he said he didn't hear anything. The next morning was muzzleloader season, so we decided to team up and hunt together. He had been seeing multiple does together every day. We were sitting on the ground in a cove watching the other side and waiting. About 7 a.m. this screaming started, identical to what I had heard the day before. These screams were 20 to 40 seconds long, variated in pitch, some being very deep. Whatever was screaming was very large. I've heard wolves, panthers, alligator, hogs, you name it. I have never heard nothing that compares to these screams. I could tell my son was bothered by it because he tensed up. I asked him what he thought was making the noises and he said, "I don't know, but I sure wish it would go away." These screams lasted about 5 to 8 minutes, then stopped. We never saw or heard anything else. No deer or animals of any type. The way these screams sounded, it wasn't too far away from us, about 100 to 150 yards. About the same distance as my encounter the morning before. On our walk out, we never saw any tracks or any signs of what made these sounds. The only thing we found strange in those woods was a broken bone from a deer's hind leg. Just that one bone, nothing else. It was splintered like something you would do to get the marrow out, and it had no teeth marks. I was camping with my father and older brother in the woods of northern Pennsylvania between 1999 and 2000. I think I may have been around the age of 9 or 10 when this incident occurred. It was around 6 p.m. and the sun was going down at the time. I remember walking at the edge of a dense forest, swamp-type area. To my left was a massive cornfield, and to the right was a tree line of dense forest. I had been walking upwards on a slight incline up towards the top of the cornfield and into the mountain area of the forest. As I was a kid at the time, I always liked looking into the forest as I believed maybe I could spot a deer or other woodland creatures. Suddenly, I stopped dead in my tracks as I was looking to my right into the tree line, and I spotted something unusual. If I had to guess, I would say that it was maybe 300 or 400 feet away from me. It made me stop cold where I was because I noticed something massive, the likes of which I had never seen before. It was very big, as in tall, and sort of had a wide frame as well. It looked as though it was covered in fur as well. I had seen bear before, and this looked nothing like a bear, as it was standing on 2 legs upright, as if it was bipedal. I froze staring into the forest while I was still standing at the tree line, and this creature was standing a good ways away from me, but I could still see it pretty clearly, as it was very large in stature. As I was staring at it, I kind of became a little scared because it seemed to be standing somewhat behind a large tree, as if it was trying to conceal itself. The size of its frame was so large that I could still see it sticking out from behind the tree. It had noticed me way before I noticed it, and it also seemed to be staring right back at me. It was doing something else strange. As we were staring at each other, it seemed to be swaying back and forth from behind the tree. It would pop out from the left side of the tree and then continue to stare, and then sway back behind the tree and pop out on the right side while still staring at me. I cannot remember the color of its eyes, but I knew for sure it was facing me and staring at me. At this point, I wasn't sure if I should run or stay still, as I had no idea what kind of creature I was facing. As I can recall, we continued to stare at each other for what seemed like an eternity, but maybe it had to be about 10 seconds at most in reality. For some reason, my curiosity overcame my fear, and I recall taking a small step towards it. As I did this, I remember it turning around very quickly, and then what shocked me even more was that it ran away in the opposite direction of me. It also ran on 2 feet, as it was for sure bipedal, and it ran so fast through the thick forest swampy area, and it was gone out of my sight within at least 6 seconds. I do remember as it was running away, it made a loud noise as it seemed to break branches and sticks in its way. It sounded as if it was an extremely large deer running away. After it had disappeared from my sight, I still stood there, shocked at what I had just seen. I also can recall the size of it being extremely tall. It was taller than any creature I had encountered even before. If I had to guess at the time, I would say at least 6 to 7 feet tall. The other strange thing I noticed was that there was a lack of any other animals around the area at the time. There was no birds in the area making any noise, along with any other creature. Thanks so much for listening until the end. I hope you enjoyed these 4 incredible encounter stories. If you did, don't forget to hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, and hit that notification bell. And also, hype this video. It helps this channel grow, and your support really makes a difference. Now, a big thank you goes out to all our current channel members, and thank you guys for your continued support. It is truly appreciated. And if you're not a member yet, be sure to check out our perks and join the OC family today. And as always, if you have had an encounter and would like to share, send it to ontariocryptids@gmail.com. I'd love to feature it in a future episode. Now have a fantastic week ahead and stay safe out there, and I'll see you next week for more mysterious stories from Ontario Cryptids.